Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going somewhere a little different. What if a hidden corner of the economy could tell us something huge about where everyone's finances are headed? We're going to look at the rising cost of living, the massive tech layoffs, and see how they're all linked through one very specific industry. And the big question is this the canary in the coal mine for the entire professional class? All right, let's kick things off with a number that, honestly, it's a bit of a shocker. Over $313,000. So, what is that? Well, that's the income a family of four now needs just to live comfortably in a state like Massachusetts. And let's be super clear, we are not talking about living large here. No yachts, no private jets. And hey, don't think this is just a big city problem. Nope, this pressure is everywhere. I mean, even in Mississippi, which is the lowest cost state, you're still looking at over 186 grand. But the really wild one? Check out Vermont, a 15% jump in just 1 year. That's insane. The squeeze is real, and it's happening to families all over the country. So you might be asking, what do they even mean by comfortable? Well, it's not some made-up standard. It's based on a really classic common-sense financial plan, the 50-30-20 rule. You know, 50% of your income goes to necessities like your mortgage and groceries, 30% is for discretionary stuff, the fun stuff, and 20% goes into savings or paying down debt. This is supposed to be the blueprint for financial stability, right? But with costs going through the roof for millions of families, hitting that simple target, well, it's starting to feel like a complete fantasy. Okay, so this isn't just about the price of eggs and gas. There's another huge storm cloud gathering. All this financial pressure is slamming right into another major trend, job insecurity. And we're talking about professionals here, people who, until very recently, thought their jobs were totally safe. Just look at the tech world. So far this year alone, more than 112,000 jobs gone. Poof. And this isn't just some minor market correction. This is a huge deal. For the last decade, tech has been the engine for high-paying professional jobs. Now, it feels like the ground is literally shifting under everyone's feet. And we're not talking about little startups that ran out of cash. No. We're talking about the giants. Intel, Amazon, Microsoft. These are names everyone knows, places where you thought you could build a lifelong career. When you see cuts this big at companies like these, it sends a wave of anxiety through the whole industry, even if you weren't one of the ones laid off. So, who's actually getting the pink slip? Well, if you dig into the numbers, a really interesting pattern pops up. About a third of the people being let go are middle managers. Think about that. These are the experienced, salaried professionals. They're basically the backbone of the upper middle class. And they are the exact same people getting absolutely crushed by the cost of living we just talked about. It's a double whammy. So let's connect the dots. What happens when the main breadwinner is suddenly worried about their job? When that nice, neat 50-30-20 budget goes right out the window? Well, you start cutting costs. And let's be real, some things are way easier and more private to cut than others. This is where the idea of a shadow budget comes in. A lot of professionals have this. It's their personal fun money. It's not for the mortgage or the kids' soccer league. It's for their own stuff, hobbies, maybe a fancy dinner with friends, or let's just say other kinds of discrete personal services. Well, the moment job security gets shaky, that shadow budget is the very first thing to disappear. It gets cut down to zero, fast. But here's the thing, and it's a super important economic point. When people have less money, do they just stop spending altogether, or do they change how they spend? History shows us pretty much every time it's the second one. People get creative. And that brings us to a really classic idea in economics. It's called the substitution effect, and it's really simple. You still want a coffee, right? But instead of that $6 latte from the cafe, maybe you brew a pot at home. You still want to be entertained, but instead of dropping $20 at the movie theater, you fire up Netflix. It's human nature. We find cheaper ways to get the things we want. And in the adult entertainment industry, this effect is playing out in plain sight. That really high-cost, high-risk, in-person service, it's being swapped out for way cheaper, lower-risk digital options. Think OnlyFans, think webcam sites. You can get a sense of connection or intimacy for a tiny fraction of the cost. It's a textbook example of the substitution effect happening in a market that's under serious pressure. Okay, so demand is taking a massive hit because the professional class is feeling the squeeze. But that's only half the story. At the exact same time, something's happening on the supply side of the equation that's pouring gasoline on the fire.
First off, let's just talk about what this means for people's wallets. Workers across the entire industry, they're reporting huge drops in what they're making this year. We're talking anywhere from a 20 to a 40% hit to their revenue. The money is just vanishing.
And remember, these aren't just abstract numbers. These are real people, and for them, this is a crisis. I mean, listen to this quote from one escort in the US. She had $8,000 in cancellations in 1 month. That's not a slow patch, that's a collapse. You can feel what she calls the recession vibe right there on the ground. And here's the crazy part. The exact same economic hardship that's pushing clients away is also pushing a flood of new people into the work. When regular jobs don't pay the bills, some people get desperate and turn to sex work to make ends meet. And what does that do? It floods the market with new supply. So you see what's happening, right? You put these two things together, fewer clients with less cash and way more workers competing for them, what do you get? It's a classic buyer's market. It's Econ 101. Prices get driven down across the board. It creates this nasty cycle where pretty much only the most established workers can even hope to keep their heads above water. Now, there's this old saying that vice industries, alcohol, gambling, sex work, are recession-proof. The idea is that in tough times, people turn to these things more, not less. But everything we're seeing right now suggests that this time is different. Very different. Think back to 2008, the last big recession. Who did that hit the hardest? It was mainly blue-collar jobs, construction. Sure, the high-end escort industry felt a pinch, but its main customers, white-collar professionals, were mostly okay. Well, what's happening now is the complete opposite. People are calling it a white-collar recession. It's like a laser-guided missile aimed directly at the tech and finance guys who make up the core client base for this market. So what this all tells us is that this isn't just a little dip. This is a deep, fundamental contraction of the market. And why should you care? Because this industry is like a perfect barometer for the discretionary spending of the professional class. If they're in trouble, it could be a huge red flag for any business that depends on those same customers. We're talking luxury cars, expensive watches, five-star restaurants, you name it. Which brings us back to our big final question. Because this one market is so directly tied to the spare cash of a very specific, very important group of people, its sudden collapse might not be an isolated thing at all. Could this be the canary in the coal mine? The first, clearest warning sign that the entire professional class is heading for a much bigger, much deeper crisis? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.